Hey, raise your hand if you love drywall dust. Okay, nobody loves drywall dust, right? We hate sanding this stuff.
If you hate your life, come do this for a day.
And you're always looking for a way to reduce the dust. Well, I'm gonna give you some pointers on that right after this. Okay, you know one of the worst parts about doing drywall finishing is the dust. And it's going to happen. I don't care how good you are, but honestly, the more you are a novice, the more you struggle with this, the more you're going to sand and the more dust you're going to make. Sometimes it's unavoidable, like when we do a big repair, sometimes we just have to do some sanding, maybe like after popcorn ceiling removal too. There are a lot of times when you need to sand. Well, I'm going to give you a couple tips on how to not have to sand so much, how to reduce that dust that you do make, and how to deal with it better. Okay, one of the first tips I can give you guys is quit using this to do everything. A lot of you have seen how-to DIY channels on YouTube and other places like Lowe's. Lowe's has one of the worst repair videos in my mind. And it's partly because they want you to fix this big old area with a little narrow knife. Well, if you learn how to smooth it out with one of these bigger knives, your knife a little bit, pull, and look. You won't have near as much to sand off. It won't look like this. It'll look a lot smoother. So kind of going along with tip number one is don't put on too much mud. Too many of you think that this is the way to do it. Put it on heavy, sand it off smooth.
Put it over the whole hole. Now I'm gonna let that dry.
As a pro, we try hard not to do that. I can generally put my mud on in such a way where I don't have to sand any of the middle. And if I do, it's real minor, like maybe pinholes that popped out, a few minor things. But mostly when I'm doing a repair, I just have to sand these edges. And that could be done with a wet sponge or with a dry sponge. It makes very little dust. So there's tip number two. Tip number three is if you're going to do something where you're going to have to do a decent amount of sanding, make a room out of plastic. I'll put a link in the description or at the end of this video on how to make a room out of plastic really quickly. There's some tools out there that really help you, and it makes a nice tight room. Cover the floor in plastic. That'll help, but when you clean up with that, you're gonna stir dust up, so you still wanna minimize the amount of dust you make. So another way to do that is get yourself a vacuum sander. Now this is just a cheap Wen brand. I got a Porter cable back here. Honestly, it's worn out right now. I've wore out 2 motors on it, so I need to work on it, but these things will trap a lot of dust if you learn how to use them right. But they really only work if you're doing a lot of sanding. On something small, it's not gonna do you much good. So if you're doing something small and you're sanding, here's what I do. I get out my smaller one of these. This is just the first one I grabbed. Normally I have this smaller, I think it's 1.5 inch tube size. And I hook it up to my vacuum, I turn it on, and I sand with it like this. And all that dust gets sucked right down in there. You trap about 90% of it that way. Then the other tip would be, after you've done all your sanding, you're sure you're done, vacuum up the floor before you clean up, because when you go to clean up, just curling up your plastic, your drop cloths, etc., it tends to stir up the dust and it just goes everywhere. So on that note, another tip is when you do. Hey, today's sponsor is me. We barely make enough off YouTube to survive, so we have to offer things like this, but these are things that can help you. Like we've got a way to clean your paint roller in 30 seconds or less with a spin clean. Store it for longer periods if you want to keep it wet. We've got ways to store your paint brushes and keep them from looking like this. We've got different sizes here. We've also got caulking tube caps to keep these from drying out in packs of 10. We've got a tool to quickly remove all the excess paint from your paint roller that quick. And to remove it from the roller, we've got the paint pop. You just give it a little and it removes it quickly. We've also got bucket scoops, ways to help you wash your tools out with this tilting device. Our sponsor who provides us with tools for free, they don't pay us to say anything. Level 5, we've got links in the description, and we've also got products like patch kits, 24 grit sanding disc, and more. All of it at toolfuse.com. There's other links in the description down below, ways you can help us and help yourself, and we'll be adding more all the time, so thanks for your support. Tip is, when you do clean up and you're rolling up your drop cloths, roll them up, literally. Take your walls down first, do it real gentle, lay them down gentle. You're trying not to stir that dust up. Roll your drop cloth over it real gently. Once you do that, you contain the dust in the middle, pack it outside, deal with the dust outside at another job site, a trash can or something. Okay, and then there's wet sanding. You might go, well, why can't I wet sand? You can, but I'm going to do a separate video demonstrating right here why I'm not real fond of wet sanding, but there is a time and a place for it. But if you want to try that, that can help reduce the dust too. Just be sure to use it in the right situation. And I'll see you on the next video, everybody. Get out there and get it done, and take care.